All right. What's up, Gary? Thanks for hopping on my channel.
Yeah, man.
Um, we've talked a little bit off camera. You been pretty new to my channel, at least to my knowledge. Commenting over the last month or so, maybe a little longer.
Yeah.
But I feel like we've connected pretty well in the short time about
Yep.
TTMing,
Right.
wrestling. I think
Yep.
you and I are probably around the same age. So
Yep.
I think we have a lot of stuff like life experience, cultural experience, stuff like
I think.
that.
Yep. Yep.
But the one thing I'm super excited about, and you alluded to it off camera, was like getting to today, so we can kind
Yep.
of talk about
Yeah.
wrestling and just what it means to us and how we got there.
Yeah.
So I feel like the best introduction for people who may not know who you are or your channel as much, or even for me, quite frankly, is a little bit about how you became a wrestling fan, where you're from, what were
Sure.
some. I know you talk about the Von Erichs a lot
Yep.
because I watched your channel. I went through all your videos to get caught up. So I kind of have a good. I have like a dangerous level of knowledge to be dangerous. So kind of where are you at with that? How did you get to where you're at today?
Well, I want to say yes. I am from the North Texas area. I'm in the DFW area. Some people may still call it Von Erich country, but I grew up in a small town called Burleson, Texas, and
Mm-hmm.
people may know that as the home of Kelly Clarkson.
Oh,
So,
there you
uh,
go.
yeah, I know, right?
American Idol,
Yeah, yes, the first.
the first.
Um, I came into wrestling, and it was a weird circumstance, man. My father had passed away in July of '85, and I want to say almost immediately after that, me and my brother, I have a younger brother, and we just kind of just got into it all of a sudden. It was just weird the way that it started. Um, of course, the Von Erichs were popular at that time, still kind of are. Um, and my grandfather would take me and my brother to Will Rogers Coliseum in Fort Worth, Texas, on Monday nights, even on school nights, to go watch the wrestling matches. I think maybe it was kind of an effort to kind of toughen us up because we were pretty young when all this happened. And I tell you, man, it was an experience. I got to see a lot of cool things, and I got to see a lot of things that happened before it happened in WWE or WWF at the time. It was exciting. It was crazy. It was full of magic at the time, and by the time we got back to my grandpa's car after, the wrestling matches, man, me and my brother, we just pass out in the back seat. Couldn't wait to tell our friends the next day on Tuesday because they'd be asking us, man, who won this match? What are we going to see? Because they would film it on Monday nights, and then they would show it on Saturday nights on KTVT Channel 11 here in the DFW area. So a lot of people in the Dallas area attended the Sportatorium, which was, the big thing. It's where, if you YouTube a lot of videos for World Class Championship Wrestling, you're going to see a lot of events that took place at the Sportatorium. It's just that was the place to go for wrestling. But we stayed, far and away from Dallas. We didn't want to go all the way out there. So basically, Fort Worth, Texas was right up the road. And Monday nights, man, it was magical. Got to see a lot of cool things. How about you, man? What were some of the wrestling and stuff that got you into it? What were some of the guys that inspired you, and who are some of the players today that you really admire?
Well, I grew up in the '80s too, like you. So
Yeah.
wrestling was huge. I'm
Yep.
from Southern Indiana, and
Nice.
that's where OVW is. So Dangerous
Okay.
Danny Davis' school is right by my house.
Yeah. Oh,
And
wow.
I actually went to school with his daughter at the same time. We were in school together.
Very nice.
And I don't know if it was called Ohio Valley Wrestling back then. It might have been a little something different because that was like 25 something years ago. So it could have
Right.
been something different. And I
Right.
don't even know if he was in charge of it at the time. But I mean, he was like one of the main guys. Then he bought it out. Now,
Oh, yeah.
obviously Al Snow's there. But
Yes.
in the '80s, and I'm also kind of like you. My dad got me and my brother, who's younger than me, into
Hmm.
wrestling. He really liked it a lot.
Yeah.
And you know, aside from that connection with the school there, the OVW or whatever it was, we knew about Jim Crockett and the Crockett promotions and things of
Right.
that sort.
Yep.
But because we're in Jeffersonville, we're not really in the Kentucky or Tennessee market. A lot of Indiana markets didn't get those Southern shows.
Okay.
So being in the Midwest, we pretty much just had like WWF and then WCW later, you know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, my first introduction was probably like a WrestleMania, like on a VHS at one of the local VHS shops. And then my dad was like, oh, well, this comes on every Saturday morning or every Friday night or whatever it was. You know, they would have like a talk show with Bobby the Brain Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon and all this kind of stuff.
Yes.
And then they would have a cartoon and everything. So my brother and I would get so much into it. And then like literally like every single release, they had any major release, you know, we were on it, you know?
Right.
And then my dad started taking us to the actual matches in Louisville, what do they call it? The Louisville Market Square Arena in Louisville or something like that.
Okay.
And we would go there. And I remember the very first match, or the very first one, I got to see Hogan, Iron Sheik.
Wow.
Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Tito Santa Martina. It was just like the who's who of like mid-'80s wrestling on WWF.
Right.
And I remember watching, I'll never forget seeing Hulk Hogan coming down with the band with his headband on and carrying the American flag. Because he's getting ready to fight the Iron Sheik, because it was like leading up to WrestleMania. Yeah. And I remember he was facing, my dad spent the extra money to get us close to the action. So we weren't like right on the floor, like right next to, but we're just a handful of seats back. So we're close.
Right.
And we're on the edge. So we're like getting to watch him walk right past us. And so we could reach out and, you know, essentially touch him. Right.
Right.
And so I remember when Iron Sheik put Hogan in the camel clutch, I was like so distraught as a like 6-year-old boy, like, you know, seeing my hero getting like manhandled by the Sheik, you know, and that's when he had Classy Freddie Blassie with him and stuff like that.
Right.
And then my brother got to like touch Ricky the Dragon Steamboat on the shoulder when he walked by, and I remember crying because I didn't get a chance to do it, and he did.
Right.
But I mean, that was like my first introduction into it for me. And then, you know, and like you said, when you go into it as a boy, that's all it takes. The magic starts, you know?
Yep. Absolutely. Man, it's I can only imagine, man, you know, Hogan back in his day. Walking there, coming out to Real American, you know, and a young Jason Zombie Collector just being, wow, there he is. Oh my God. Look at that tanned. Right. You know,
I know that was the closest I could get to heaven at 6 years old or whatever. So, you know, so as you were saying, you know, about your situation in Texas and the arena you got to see wrestling in, what you probably got to see a lot of guys, maybe girls too, but a lot of guys who hadn't made it big yet, but maybe were just local to Texas or like the central states or whatnot. Right. Or what were some of the biggest names that you saw or you thought were going to be make it big before they kind of got on the national scene? Because I obviously think, you know, I'm a fan, but I think you're a super fan. So I feel like you have a lot more of the knowledge and probably retain the memories more than I probably would.
I got you, man. Dude, that's a great question. I think some of the you know, it's so weird because like a lot of the guys that I saw wrestle that went on to, you know, WWE at the time wound up getting put under a gimmick. I think one of the best ones, best example was a guy named Maniac Matt Bourne, who came from Oregon, and he wound up becoming the very first Doink the Clown. And so I knew it was him because the way he was a southpaw, and I could tell by the way that he hit whenever I saw him as Doink the Clown. I'm like, no way, is that? No way. And sure enough, man, I just couldn't believe it. There were some guys, you can even find, there's even a video of this on YouTube, but I want to say it was one of Shawn Michaels' very first matches here in World Class in Dallas. And I want to say he took on Billy Jack Haynes. And, you know, the screen, of course, said Shawn Michaels. And whenever he got announced, you know, the announcer guy was like, Shawn Michaels, and it's just like, oh my gosh. And you see this painfully scrawny pale skinned dude with short hair, taking on this muscular, steroid freak. And it was crazy. I think the match lasts like 27 seconds at the most. And Shawn, of
Total
course,
squash match.
Yeah, pretty much. He runs to the corner, does a backflip, and then gets put in a full Nelson and then tapped out. I mean, how crazy is that? The Undertaker started out here as the Punisher. Stone Cold Steve Austin started out here as Stunning Steve Williams. Him and Shawn Michaels were actually trained by a gentleman called Gentleman Chris Adams. I don't know if you've ever heard of Gentleman Chris Adams. He was a black belt in karate. Did a lot of tournaments from the UK. He was a British gentleman, and whenever he came over here in 1983, the ladies absolutely fell in love with him. And not only did he have the look, but he had that power, man. He just had that it factor that a lot of people, that you love and adore, just had. He had the it factor. And
which I don't mean to cut you off, but I think like Nick Aldis is being wasted at NWA, and I think he has that same it factor.
He does.
I mean, he has a total package. And I feel like he's in the NWA, and it's like nothing's happening with that right now. He'd be like, if he was on AEW, I mean, he would just be a superstar. I don't mean to cut you off, but I was thinking that when you mentioned that.
Yeah, that's a great point too, because I do see a lot of qualities between him and Chris Adams. I also see Nick Aldis as like the classic Nick Bockwinkel. I don't know if you ever got into just the way that he carries himself, the way that he dresses, the way that he talks. Dude, and it comes so natural to him. It's it's no wonder he's not on a bigger stage. Hopefully he will be. I hope that NWA gets their stuff together. They can figure it out and start going again, man. But I totally get it. One of the other people I adore from NWA that's shown up on AEW, one of our favorites, Thunder Rosa.
Oh my gosh, dude! Yeah, Thunder Rosa, dude. Yeah, man, I'm hoping Thunder Rosa talks Nick Aldis and oh god, what's the other guy's name? He's the other megastar that's over there. It's shoot. Oh my gosh, I can't think of it.
Not Tim Storm, is it?
No, he's a clean cut guy out of Los Angeles.
Okay.
He used to be on WWE for a while.
Was it Zicky Dice?
Not Zicky. He's going to be in AEW, I believe, soon, but not Zicky Dice. It's the other guy. He's clean cut. Oh my gosh. He has a cool introduction song. He comes in.
Okay.
He wears trunks. I can't remember. He has like an excellent build. I can't remember his name, but he plays a heel so well.
Right.
Man.
Right.
Anyways,
that's all right.
But yeah, there's but like not to take away from what you're saying, but there's a couple of guys that you're saying that like they have the modern day equivalents too. I think a lot.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
So, but anyways, please finish your thought about the gentleman.
Oh yeah. So, gentleman Chris Adams, man, he was known to be a trainer here. Whenever you would be tuning in to watching wrestling on Sunday mornings here on Channel 39 from the Sportatorium, the commercial breaks, you would see Chris Adams talking about his wrestling school. And from what I understand, Stone Cold Steve Austin, better known as Steve Williams at the time, was playing football for UNT in Denton, which is just a little bit up the road. He took a chance and he went to this wrestling school. Things started to progress. He got in there, built a rivalry up with gentleman Chris Adams, and he learned a lot from Chris Adams. And also, Chris Adams was known for his super kick. So Shawn Michaels got that from
Shawn Michaels. Might have did a little poaching of that. Yeah,
he absolutely did. And I guarantee you, if you ask him or if you watch some interviews, he will give credit to gentleman Chris Adams, because I'm telling you, man, he was a stud back in the day. I'm not even kidding. There's a documentary out about him called The Gentleman's Choice. If you ever get a chance on YouTube, it's for free from what I understand. But it's called The Gentleman's Choice about Chris Adams. It's it talks about his career, talks about where he came from, and you can see, man, like he was over even whenever he was a heel with Gino Hernandez, known as the Dynamic Duo. I'm telling you, man, the ladies just flocked, and that's one reason why I love wrestling too, is because you could see all the beautiful women in the crowd, and it was just like, I want to be like this dude. I want to be like him. I want to have this
like,
swagger.
Right. That's like, back, I mean, and I gotta be, I don't know about the gentleman Chris Adams, right?
Right.
I don't know a whole lot about him. I've heard of him through Shawn Michaels talking about him, of course, but I don't know much about his history. But when I hear I hear you mention stuff like that, I always think about like Ravish and Rick Rude, who had this excellent body, but he'd always bring women up there, and women would go crazy for him. So it's like guys want to be with him or be around him, like his friend and girls want to be with him. You know what I'm saying? Right. And it's like, it's one of those things. It was, by the way, the guy in NWA, Eli Drake. That's who I was thinking of.
Gotcha.
I feel like Eli Drake, Thunder Rosa, and Aldis are all being wasted over there, but that's a side story. But Smashing Pumpkins. Smashing Pumpkins.
If you ever watch the NWA stuff, I don't know if you've ever seen the gentleman that first had the belt named Tim Storm.
Tim Storm.
Yeah, he's from here. Yes,
he's a teacher, right?
I'm sorry.
He's a teacher, right? In real life, he's a teacher or principal or something.
Yeah, he's a real life teacher. Last time I knew, he was like 53, 54 years old, in phenomenal shape for his age. And I tell you, man, like I got to see one of my good friends who wrestled. I got to see him wrestle him at a convention, or not a convention center, like a community center about 6-7 years ago. And my buddy, he was a heel wrestler. So, Tim Storm was his face, and he carried himself like a champion too. He would come in through those doors. He was wearing his suit. He was wearing everything, had his roller bag and everything. Very, very cool guy, very nice. And I was so happy to see him with that success whenever he came in to NWA and had the belt. I'm so glad that Nick Aldis has that chance too. But it's so hard to see somebody that, you've met them and you've seen them in person and see them do well and see their success and stuff, and then kind of get put in that role. But I mean, he just has that fire too, and he's always had that fire. So it's there's a lot of talent that's here in Texas, and people that I've seen at some of these independent shows, it'd blow your mind. Now they're on the main roster of WWE, AEW, and there's still plenty left over. It's absolutely nuts. It blows my mind, like how far some of these guys have gotten in what seems like a short amount of time, but they've been working their tails off to get to where they are, and I'm very happy for all their successes, and I hope they continue to do well. I wish them nothing but the best.
Yeah, most definitely. And I wanted to say, Otto, I don't know if you can see the question here about how many Bruiser Brody and Abdullah the Butcher matches have you got to see. I'll let you have that one first. I don't know if I can say I never seen any of them live. I've seen plenty on VHS or on YouTube, and I know if you go back and watch The Dark Side of the Ring, right? They show a lot of Bruiser Brody and Abdullah the Butcher and all those guys getting in those rings in Puerto Rico, right? And like going to town on each other.
Oh yeah, and then going all around the arena too, with the fans following them. And a lot of people don't know this too, but like in Puerto Rico or whatever, if you're a bad guy, you might get stabbed.
Right.
Several times. I mean, it was all out craziness from what I've read and from what I've been told from other wrestlers and stuff. And I have an old picture here that has Bruiser Brody, Kevin Von Erich, and Lance Von Erich. Bruiser, man, I'm going to tell you right off. There were several matches that happened in World Class with Abdullah the Butcher and Bruiser Brody. Every time we would start watching it, and as soon as the first guy bled, my mom turned that TV off. She's like, boys, brush your teeth. It's time for bed. She always cut it off. So, right. She did not want the violence in her house.
That's hilarious. Well, it's funny because my dad would always be the guy who goes, don't tell your mom. So he's like, let's wait till she goes out of the room, and then we'll all go watch the movie together or whatever. Because, now a lot of those matches were not on your normal pay-per-view, made for VHS, because that's more like the Ginger fight or whatever, WWF stuff. They weren't going to get too over at the top, A lot of those matches you're talking about were those like the secret hidden tapes that people would trade and sell underground from back then. Unless you were there, you're never going to see it. So you have to get the tape, you know?
Right. And I never got into the tape trading thing. My big thing was the after mags. I got a chance to get some magazines and would just go through it page by page and, you know, take a look and see what's going on in this territory and what's going on in that territory. See what's going on in Puerto Rico. And yeah, I would see these crazy pictures of, you know, Abdullah fighting somebody. It's like, oh, it's the same thing. Somebody's going to bleed. He's got to sport. The ref's not going to see it.
And I was going to tell you, I never told anybody this before. I didn't even, I mean, again, because my channel is mostly baseball related or whatever. And I do wrestling a little bit, but it's not overt because, again, I don't have as many people like yourself that I can connect with on that, which is, you know, it is what it is. But while we're talking, and you're talking about some of these like unsanctioned matches or like off the grid matches.
Right.
I lived in Japan for 12 years. And I remember one time, I'll never forget this. Well, and I can't remember the whole card, but in Japan, they would literally set up a ring in the middle of an open air market, like where there's like, you know, neon lights everywhere, there's buildings everywhere, there's like all this foot traffic, and then there's like this little like concrete pagoda area where it's big enough to put a ring in, and they would just start wrestling matches in the middle of the street basically. And all these people would come and watch for free. But like there'd be like former sumo wrestlers getting in there with former WWF stars or UFC back in the day or whatever what used to be called, or you know, like the Ken Shamrocks and the Gracies and all those guys that were in the first round, the first wave.
Yes.
And those guys would get in there with like Akibono and all these like big Japanese American sumo wrestlers, and they would get in there and fight with people like Bob Sapp and Kimbo Slice and all these guys. And you know, you got to think, you got like legit WWF like stars who like they fell from grace, like some of those guys, and they're over here and like basically putting on a free promotion. I'm sure somebody's getting paid somewhere.
Right.
But they're just like in the middle of like a 98-degree hot as butt, you know, summer day, waylaying at each other in the middle of a town with all these people walking around like, what the hell is all these foreigners fighting for in this ring? So it was a pretty cool experience to have to see that, you know. So
yeah, I can imagine.
So to talk about a little bit, to get back to you a bit. So you know, you talked about some of the people like Doink the Clown that initially came out of that area.
Right.
What are you know, maybe some of the things you saw either on TV or in VHS world, like buying it, you know, renting it or whatever, that really brought you into like outside of the Texas area, that opened you up to like all these other promotions or WCW, WWF? Like, what were some of those first opportunities for you to kind of go, wow, it's bigger than Texas?
Right. Yeah. And that's a fantastic question. I right off the top of my head, man, I would say that following Christmas of '85, we got the, you know, a bunch of LJN, those wrestling figures, and the AWA Remco. Yes. And the AWA Remco figures. Got some of those. But the thing that was cool is, I guess at Toys R Us at the time, they were selling the AWA VHS tapes. And, you know, on the cover, you would see Sergeant Slaughter on one, or the Fabulous Freebirds, which they were here for a very long time against the Von Erich. And of course, you had the Road Warriors, man, probably the best tag team, hands down, best tag team ever.
I don't care what they say about the Young Bucks.
That says different.
Animal, it was Animal and Hawk, man.
Yeah, with Paul Ellering, precious Paul Ellering. Yeah.
His daughter wrestles now, doesn't she?
I'm sorry?
Doesn't Paul Ellering's daughter wrestle now?
Yes, Rachel Ellering, and I think she went by a different name in NXT.
Yeah, and then she showed up in AEW in a couple of dark matches.
Okay, yeah. She's very talented too, but I absolutely love precious Paul Ellering, man. He's one of the coolest legit dudes, man. I got a chance to talk to him on the phone one time. And any question that I had, man, he took his time and he answered, and I asked him if I could send him something in the mail to sign, because I wanted to be courteous first. And you know, since he's a legit member of Mensa, he's like one of the smartest dudes in the world. Did a lot of the Iditarod sled dog races in Alaska.
In Alaska, yeah.
Yeah, he's done like 7 of them. He was a legit whenever he would have the newspaper, telling the stocks and stuff like that. He was legit a manager, like would book their flights, get them in the hotels, try to calm them down when, the testosterone got a little high. But he was legit, man. And that dude, I've got so much respect for, so much respect. And I love the Road Warriors, man. Just they were crazy good. And those VHS tapes, man, you got to see like where they would wrestle in Minnesota, and then like one of the next matches you would see would be at the Riviera in Las Vegas, and it's like, whoa, what kind of territory is this?
Yeah.
And it was just crazy. Got to see like Kurt Hennig and his dad Larry the Axe Hennig take on the Road Warriors, and Kurt Hennig
cool.
Kurt Hennig was left in like a bloody mess. It was, dude, and I've never seen so much heat on a tag team before. When the Road Warriors were walking back to the locker room, these fans were swarming and throwing stuff at them. And in one scene, you see a chair fly and hit Hawk in the head. And I mean, these fans, I'm telling you, go on YouTube. It may be on YouTube, but I'm telling you, if you get a chance to find a VHS player and find that tape on eBay or something, that match alone, dude, is crazy good, crazy good. It's absolutely just pure pandemonium. You talk about the Puerto Rico stuff. This is that level of crazy.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I agree with you about Animal and Hawk. I mean, without a doubt, they are amazing. I'd watch them. I mean, now I didn't know much about them when they were first starting out, so I'm not gonna be like a pretender or whatnot.
Yeah.
I knew them when they got to WWF, at that point in time.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much they were neutered, if they were, compared to what it sounded like they were pretty wild and rambunctious.
Yeah.
So they might have been neutered some when they got there to kind of make it more family friendly. Yeah. But I mean, and maybe you can speak to this a little bit, but I think it's hilarious if you go and watch Animal and Hawk. But then there's like a bunch of the guys back then that they would cut promos.
Yes.
They were like, and like, Macho Man was like this, Ultimate Warrior was like this, sometimes like George Animal Steel. Like, they would just say nonsense, stuff that didn't make sense. Like, you literally have no idea what they're talking about. But, when you're a kid, it made sense. Like, you were so pumped up. You were so, like, ready to go. But if you go back and watch them cutting promos, you're like, what in the hell are you talking about? I mean, there's like gibberish, like you can't make out what they're said, and then they'll say brother, and it's like, and you're like, yeah, but they didn't say anything. They didn't say anything. So I always find it hilarious that some of these guys, it was basically purely their look, what they did in the ring, which is sometimes the most important things, but if you put a microphone in front of their face, they were like lost. And I mean, nowadays they do, I mean, like, NXT and like AEW with Dark and like that. I mean, they work on these people to make sure they have some sort of mic skills.
Absolutely,
But back then you could tell they didn't really care if they talked that much. They might give them a manager, they might give them a valet or whatever to kind of help a little bit. But you put a microphone in front of some of those guys' faces and you're just going to get like roid-filled screaming and hooting and hollering, and they just stomp off.
I think it was just to bring people in too, or basically just to sell action figures.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, that dude looks like that. Oh, he's so pumped up, man. I want to go. I want to spend my allowance to get his action figure. Just craziness. And some of the stuff that Hawk would say, from what I understand, a lot of it was just to pop the boys in the back, because some of the stuff that he would say wouldn't always make sense. But a lot of people were just like, man, that's crazy. Okay. But there's also some footage on YouTube. I guess somebody did a backstage thing, and Hawk could have been a stand-up comedian. I mean, just funny. He was probably that one guy that everybody knew at the party that just brought everybody in and just made you laugh. And just, just some of this stuff. It was ridiculous, but it was so much fun to watch.
That is awesome. So B-Phil talks about growing up and with watching Portland wrestling. And
Yeah.
I mean, out of Portland comes Roddy Piper, right? That's where he's out of, correct?
Absolutely. Him, Billy Jack Haynes, of course, was in the Oregon scene. There was a lot of guys. As a matter of fact, I just picked up a book with this gentleman here. Down here, he was known as Lance Von Erich. Right here, Lance Von Erich. But in Oregon, he was known as Ricky Vaughn. And this is a book that I just picked up, man, a few weeks ago. And I've already read it cover to cover. But it talks about his Portland days and who all was there, with the Portland scene and everything. And, a lot of people use the Oregon wrestling as a platform to get to the next step, to go to WWE, especially if you had that kind of talent and stuff. And a lot of fun stories in there, man. So if anybody wants to read about Portland wrestling, whoever that was, man, check out this book. It's called Lance by Chance. And there's some fun stories about Oregon in there. It might bring you back. So let's see. Okay. Used to party with Superfly.
Superfly. Is that Superfly Jimmy Snuka we talking about?
I'm pretty sure it is.
If that's the Superfly you're talking about, it's lucky that your dad's here to tell the tale. Because I've heard he would party hardy.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't going to go there, man. I wouldn't.
I'm not going to talk about what kind of party he'd be doing, but yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let's just say bodies hit the floor.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, he was. But whenever you were a kid, you never even thought about that. You would hear all kinds of weird rumors. Stuff. Yeah, you would hear all kinds of weird rumors about these guys.
Sure.
But you didn't really know. And then as I'm finding out as I get older, some of it's kind of funny, some of it's kind of crazy. And then yeah, it makes sense, man. Like, finding out about this guy and like, he wasn't a real Von Erich. He wasn't the cousin of the Von Erichs. Right. He was just some dude that was found on a golf course. And one of the referees that happened to work for World Class Championship Wrestling was friends with Fritz Von Erich and was basically a scout to bring in talent, sees this dude on the golf course is jacked up dude. And he's like, oh my gosh. You ever thought about being a wrestler? Yeah. Well, let me take you to the office and look how much money you can make. And that's, where some of these guys came from, they were just athletes. So
I mean, we know back in the 80s, even the 90s, and of course in the 70s, there was no such thing as the internet and all that. And, the only wrestling you would ever know about is by word of mouth. And if you're in those circles, the companies are not going to talk about their dirty laundry on air or on their like syndicated shows. So, when Jimmy the Superfly Snuka disappears for 6 months, you don't think anything about it, Right. But I mean, obviously a lot of these guys, he's on vacation or they write him out of the storyline, they give him a reason. He gets hit in the head with a coconut and he disappears for a year, stuff like that. So, but nowadays, and also back then, we could talk a little bit about this. There's a kayfabe, like this is real. Like these are real things happening. This is a real, like I always tell everybody, and I'm sure you've heard this before. I've heard it from somebody else. Wrestling is like a male version of a soap opera.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, I had a friend of mine who was in high school to that very day that told me wrestling was real. Like he believed it with 100% because still back then in the 90s, they still believed like there was no separation between the actor / wrestler with the personality.
Right.
And nowadays there's really no more. There's no wall left. I mean, the wall's been busted down. Yep. You have a few guys that still kind of keep. I mean, like MJF, shockingly, is doing a pretty good job of playing a heel. I mean, just last week he was flipping off the son of a dead wrestler, and telling him to go F himself, and tells him he's a little POS. And this guy's dad died a week before, and you're like, you can't believe that. Like, I mean, I was like shocked because wrestling really doesn't do stuff like that anymore.
Exactly.
And of course it's a work. Everybody, mom checked it off and all that stuff, signed off on it. But, I'm sure maybe if you watch stuff like that when you see little things like that, that takes you aback now because it doesn't really do that anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. There's the genie's out of the bottle, as they say, and as far as kayfabe. And, I used to hear back in the day that, there were great links to keep kayfabe the way that it was, keeping the heels and the faces from, in separate locker rooms, making sure that they don't go party together. Yeah, they don't go party together afterwards and stuff.
They don't even drive together. They drive separate,
Right. Unless you're Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Iron Sheik, and then
right. Yeah.
So I think that was like the first thing, that really kind of shocked people. Like, oh my God, those two rode together. They did what together?
Right.
Oh my gosh. Just one of those type of things. I think it took people for a surprise, and then, kind of got to see a peek behind the curtains, as they say. Right. So, but it's.
So do you know about this? Andre the Giant, he wrestled in Portland. Does that make sense? Have you heard that before? That sounds vaguely familiar to me, but I don't know.
Yeah, he wrestled in several territories, as long as he let Vince Sr. know that he was doing that, because, a lot of these guys, if they came from other countries or whatever, they would, if they wrestled under Vince Sr. or whatever, at that time, it'd be like, hey, I'm going to go wrestle over here if that's cool with you. They had a schedule. So, Andre the Giant may be in Corpus Christi once every year, something like that. Or, he may show up in Portland. He did. I'm very, very positive that he did. I know he wrestled here in Texas too, quite a few times. There's even a match on YouTube, believe it or not, Andre the Giant versus Kamala, Ugandan warrior.
I saw that wrestling match. I watched it after Kamala died.
Yeah,
I watched it because people were talking about it.
Yeah, it's from like 1982, and it took place at Will Rogers, where I used to go. And man, you see that ring just kind of every time a bump was taken, it's like, man, that's bonkers. And then just to know, a couple of years later, he's in the WWF with Vince Jr. and Hogan and Junkyard Dog and all these cats, man. So.
Oh yeah, Hillbilly Jim. Come on now.
Oh yeah. Got a little bit of that action.
Nikolai Volkov. Yeah. So let me ask you this, because we talked and we said we're gonna go about an hour. We're about 25-ish minutes, 20 minutes away before we want to roll it up. But I wanted to move a little bit away from specifically wrestling and how that segued into your autograph collecting. And I know you do a lot with TTM, but do you do a lot of in person? And when did you start that? Did you start that when you were a kid going to shows, or did you start that like 8 years ago? Like, how did that come about?
Man, very first famous person I ever met was Conway Twitty after a Texas Ranger baseball game. And I think that just kind of sparked a fire for me as far as like collecting autographs and stuff like that. But 9 years ago, I quit smoking cigarettes as of January 1st, man. Probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. And about a year and a half into it, man, I started getting those urges again to want to smoke cigarettes. And I started watching some videos on YouTube, and I saw these people were doing stuff called TTM. And I'm like, what is this? And it opened up a whole new world for me, and it kept my hands busy. Thank God, man, because it gave me something. It gave me purpose, and it gave me something that I could show for not doing this horrible habit, Sure. So I did a lot of research, and a lot of people that I reach out to aren't just baseball players. I love wrestling, and I've written to so many people. I go to shows. I try and meet as many people as I can, even if I can't afford their autograph or whatever. If I can just, shake their hand and tell them thank you, for everything they've done. That's what makes it all worth it to me. And believe it or not, I mean, I've met so many cool people. It's been crazy, man. I got a couple of things I could show you real quick here, man. I've got if you're into NXT, I wrote to this lady a while back, better known as Vanessa Bourne. I think she is absolutely gorgeous, man. But I got her TTM by sending to the Performance Center at NXT. That's where, if you want to write to somebody that's NXT, send to the Performance Center. I want to say it's off Forsyth Road, something like that. But look it up. You'll find the address. And some other people I've been lucky enough to meet, just at shows. I've shown you this. It's me and Thunder Rosa.
Nah, man.
I knew she was going to be huge. she has that it factor. I knew she was going to be huge. And these days, man, of course, the Von Erichs. I also love MLW wrestling, Major League Wrestling. They have quite a few talents too. I got to see MJF there about a year and a half ago. If you look at some
Sammy
of my
Guevara
videos,
there too?
I'm sorry.
Wasn't Sammy Guevara there for?
If he did, it might have been for a one-off show or so.
Okay.
But he did a lot of the independents here in Texas because he's from the Houston area.
Okay.
But of course, I grew up a Von Erich fan, and Kevin, the lone survivor, his two boys, Ross and Marshall, they wrestle for MLW. And it's kind of cool. I got to see them take on Jacob Fatu and some other guys, and MJF was there. And if you look in my videos in the video section of my channel, I got a couple of clips of MJF acting like a heel, and people literally booing the crap out of him. Also got a couple. Yeah, dude,
it's amazing, dude. This guy. I mean, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go backwards in 20, 25, 30 years, you know, he's not doing anything unique. A lot of guys are doing stuff like that.
Absolutely. I see total shades of Gino Hernandez in him. I mean, he's that guy that the ladies they hate to boo him, you know.
Right.
And he's young, man. He's like 23, 24 years old.
Oh, I know.
He's just starting out. You know, he's got it probably 25, 30 years ahead of him. And if you can get that kind of
with Jericho, which is one of the best promo guys and mic guys, and like you know, thinking on his feet. Yes. I mean, you know, Jericho just celebrated with 30 years in the ring this past October. So I mean, I'm not saying he's on his level yet, but I mean, if he's in that realm at 22, 23, whatever, that's dangerous. Like you said, a decade down the road.
Yeah, he's absolute money, and you can't deny it. I mean, I remember I was just standing there and I was listening to people around me boo him, like seriously get into it, boo him, throwing stuff at him, you know, making fun of his scarf and this and that. And it's just like, man, this dude is just doing his thing. He was working the people to a tilt. It was so funny to watch. So funny. He is very entertaining. So that dude definitely has the it factor.
Well, I mean, like, it's so crazy because I've seen clips of people, like, and he's like an autograph signing or like after a show signing, you know, like after a match or whatever. And like, he never breaks character. Like, he is 100% MJF every time there's anybody around. If he's in public, he's MJF. And it's crazy. Like, you really don't know what kind of person he is off camera. I mean, you have no idea because every time, or when he's not in the ring or in the ring, he's the same person. It's unbelievable.
Right.
And I got to give him credit for that. I mean, like, you know, it's almost like you're intimidated to meet the guy because you're like, this guy's going to be a total douchebag. He really is. Like, that's just who he's going to be.
Right.
And, you know, but it's so funny because I saw a video of him like 8 months, well, right before the hashtag Rona hit. He was at a show somewhere. He was with AEW, and some kid had a sign for whoever it was he was wrestling, like in the front stands. And he took the sign and threw it away. They gave him the finger, you know? And it's like, this kid's like 8. You know, he's like Brody age, Junior's age. So, and I don't think that was staged. I think that was real. And I was just like, wow, you know, like, okay.
You know,
so
on that same page, man, I heard that there was an autograph signing with MJF. And of course, an 8-year-old comes up to get his picture. And in the picture, MJF just throws up the middle finger while getting the picture taken. I'm like, get out of here, you know? And people are like, how can you do that, you know, to a kid? And it's just like, you don't understand, man. He's doing it. He's doing his thing.
He's committed, dude. He's committed. So you met Thunder Rosa. I know you have multiple autographs of hers and pictures. You sent them to me, which was great. Is there anybody else you saw in the last, you know, decade or less wrestling that caught your attention as much as Thunder Rosa?
Yeah. Shane Strickland, who wound up becoming, or Swerve Shane Strickland. Now he's known as Isaiah Swerve Scott in NXT. I've got some video of him at a local wrestling show here called MPX Wrestling for Metroplex Wrestling. And that dude was money, man. I got a picture of him over here with my boy that he signed an autograph. Actually, you know what? I've got it right here. I'll show you the picture, Jason.
All right. Yeah, let's see this picture. I want to see it.
But,
while you're looking it up, have you ever met Stone Cold before?
No. This is going to sound weird, man, but I'm just going to say it. During that whole WCW versus, WWF days, that Monday Night Wars or whatever, I was a WCW guy. I didn't give a crap about Stone Cold. I know I should have. He's from Texas. He's from
I'm right there with you. I think we just became best friends because I was a WCW guy during that whole time too. Like when the whole thing folded up and they lost, I was like devastated.
Yes.
So I'm right there.
Man, it was just like they had so much success. What the booking got bad, and I'm not going to point the fingers on any one person or whatever that I think kind of dropped the ball on it, but I think there was multiple hands that kind of dropped the ball on it. But this is Isaiah Swerve Scott, or as I knew him, Shane Strickland. Swerve Shane Strickland.
He's in NXT now.
Yeah, he's in NXT now. And man, while we're on the subject of the Von Erichs, I have never shown this on camera. So I figured
exclusive.
Yeah, man. So brace yourself, man. I'm about to show something really cool.
I'm glad I'm sitting down.
So when WrestleMania was in town about 5 years ago, there was also a lot of independent shows that were doing stuff around here.
Sure.
And there was one in Fort Worth at the Ridgely Theater. And there was a gentleman there that was selling some old school stuff. And I saw this. I had to have it. And I knew it was legit whenever I saw it. But this was a picture of Kerry Von Erich. This is a signed picture. Happiness is. And speaking of Portland wrestling as well, this is Steve Simpson, who also wrestled in that territory. That's his brother, Shawn Simpson, his younger brother. They're from South Africa. You got Kevin Von Erich here. I didn't have enough guts to ask Kevin to sign the picture because I'm afraid that, if he sees any picture of his brothers or whatever, it's
tough.
Yeah, I know it's got to be tough. But then I looked on the back of this, Jason, whenever I was looking at this guy's stuff, and there's gentleman Chris Adams' signature.
No way.
And then if you see this signature right here, this is Percy Pringle. Do you know who Percy Pringle is?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's the Paul Bearer.
Yes, that's correct.
Yes. So you're trying to test me. I gotta at least try to show that I have a little bit of skin in the game.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, as we were talking about awesome tag teams earlier, I gotta show this picture off too, since we're talking about the event that I went to where I picked up that picture. But I had done it. I did a TTM to this gentleman, and whenever I saw him in person, I was like, "Hey, man, nice to meet you. You signed a card for me." He's like, "Don't let anybody see that I signed that," because apparently, whenever these wrestlers are doing these events, they do the WrestleCon and stuff like that. They're kind of under contract. They're not supposed to be doing that. So I talked to him for a second. I was like, "Dude," because I didn't have a card of him at the time. I was like, "Hey, man, you actually have some of my artwork hanging up at your wrestling school?" And he goes, "Really?" I go, "Yeah, man. I sent you a letter and everything." He goes, "Did I send you an autograph back?" I go, "Yes, sir. You sure did." And he goes, "Dude, man, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that, man." We shook hands, and dude, we wound up being friends for the night. And I'm talking about probably the second best tag team ever, hands down, the Rock and Roll Express.
Oh, nice.
I got to have drinks with Ricky Morton, man.
So my gosh.
Mullet and everything, dude. I got the Devil Jack and Coke right there in my hand. He's double fisting some beers. He was telling jokes, dude. He is like the dirtiest uncle telling jokes that you've ever heard. Such a down-to-earth dude. He was so funny, man. And
he was great, dude. You're right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And I always tell people, man, you got to sell it like Ricky Morton, man. You got to sell it like Ricky Morton.
So, well, did you see a couple months ago he took that pile driver from FTR?
Oh yeah. He's not afraid to get his hands dirty, man. He's old school. He has NFLTG, as they say. Thoughts on that? Wow.
It was, when I saw that, I couldn't believe he got to be in his like mid late 60s, isn't he?
Yeah, sure is.
Oh my gosh. When I saw that, I seriously thought, oh God, we just saw him die right there in the ring.
Right.
Oh
Right.
my God, you're right, dude. He does not give a flip, man. He does
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. He
So what? So what's your thoughts about Mick Foley? That's what somebody asked.
dude, he's a legend, man. What can you say? He's taken the biggest bump I think I've ever seen. One of the biggest bumps. I'm not going to talk about some of these outlaw shows that I've seen some crazy stuff on, but Mick
Sure.
Foley, man, for what it was worth. I mean, he also wrestled here as Cactus Jack, so he
Cactus
was in the
Jack.
North Texas area for a while too. He's also on this awesome DVD called "The Triumph and Tragedy of World Class Championship Wrestling," talking about when world class kind of died down. He had his place here too, so he was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. It might be the same guy. You never know, Henry.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as my thoughts are on Mick Foley, Cactus Jack, Dude Love, Mankind. Depends on who you're talking about, right? The Rocco Sacco connection. So I mean, like I always thought that he was a very what's the word I'm looking for? Like he was you could put him in any kind of match and he would all be awesome in it. Yeah. I mean, he could do a straight up clean wrestling match, just your regular normal bumps, or in the next week he could be on the top of some scaffolding, jumping in to a bunch of barbed wire, and it's just like very few wrestlers can go that seamless through the two of them. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like you have a lot of wrestlers who won't get that dirty. They're scared to take real hardcore bumps, and I don't blame them. I wouldn't either. I'm not throwing any shade at them.
Right.
But Mick Foley, he did not care. You know what I'm saying? And people who didn't know he did extreme stuff, I think were shocked when WWF started incorporating that during the Attitude Era, because they weren't used to that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
And, I mean, I think, and that's what kind of like, this bloodlust that you saw a lot of these guys started going for what, half of a decade or more almost, and, but I mean, that was like kind of Mick Foley's bread and butter for so long, that was like his thing.
Yeah.
I mean, he comes around to Indiana a lot doing autograph signings and like talks. I don't know. I don't think he lives in the area, but he seems like he's always around here. So he must make the rounds. Yeah. Because if I feel like he'll do like a comic book toy shop, like a signing, and then he'll do like a comedy, like a comedy skit or conversation, and he'll do some kind of like, local promotion for a wrestling club or whatever. And it's just like the dude's everywhere. Like if you put the word wrestling in front of it, chances are Mick Foley might be there.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of guys that do that circuit, and it's kind of cool, man. The one thing that I'm grateful for is that here in the state of Texas, we actually have a brick and mortar Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame out in Wichita Falls, Texas. And for my 40th birthday, man, my wife, we decided to take a little road trip out there and take a look. And man, I'm not kidding. I don't know how to describe it other than it's almost like a wrestling utopia. I walked in. First thing that I saw was Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff's robe, that blue robe that he used to wear.
Oh my gosh, with all the rhinestones and stuff on it.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. I'm not gonna lie, dude. Like I started tearing up because I was that 7-year-old kid again, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I saw this as a kid, and probably in the days whenever he was with Danny Davis doing all that crazy stuff.
Yeah. I mean, like my son was like, I didn't see it like live like you did, like some of those like inanimate objects, but you have a connection with it. Like I would when AEW, and I'm not, a peek behind the curtain of my own personal life, but when AEW introduced Sting for the first time, man, that first time introduction, I seriously got emotional. Like I couldn't believe it. My son was like, "Are you okay, Dad?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." I like somebody's cut onions around here somewhere.
Right.
Yeah. But like I was seriously moved beyond all belief. And then when they did the Brody Lee tribute, it was the same thing. Like I was just like completely moved by the gestures people were making. So I mean,
Right.
I think like you said, if I came into this as a 42-year-old man now, I would just be like, well, that's nice,
Right.
or
Right.
that's cool. I remember seeing Sting in '97 or in
Yep.
'89 or whatever. Now I see
Right.
that's cool, whatever. But if
Right.
you grow up with it, it's like
Yeah.
a part of your DNA.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you ever get to see him with Ultimate Warriors? We knew him down here, the Dingo Warrior,
Oh, the
when they were
Dingo
called
Warriors, yeah, I've seen some of their matches on tape.
the Blade Runners, man. That stuff was pretty bonkers, man. They were excellent. Here's an older picture of Ultimate Warrior back whenever he was known as Dingo Warrior down here in Texas. But
Now, Ultimate Warrior's from Indiana. He's
yeah, sure
yeah,
is.
he's from Brazil, Indiana, and
I thought it was parts unknown Indiana.
well, parts unknown, right? But but the funny thing is, so I used to hang out with this girl in college, and she's from Brazil, Indiana. And
Okay.
I didn't know what's his real name. I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Jim
It starts with an H.
Hellwig. Jim
Hellwig, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that Jim Hellwig was from Brazil. I knew he was somewhere in Indiana. And then I go to this girl's house with her family because we were in college, and she was like, her dad was like, "Are you a wrestling fan?" Because he knew, we were that age. We're around that age. I'm in my 20s, and that's like 15 years ago, so 5 to 8 and all that. And I was like, "Oh yeah, I know the Ultimate Warrior." He goes, "Oh yeah, he just lives up the street from here, or he did. I don't remember either or." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm friends with him. Like, we went to school together." And I was like, "What?"
Wow.
Because Ultimate Warrior is one of those guys who didn't really have a personality. He just was like the Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah.
So the idea that he actually was born and raised and went to school and had a family and friends, like,
kind of
didn't cross my mind.
Yeah. It really kind of puts a face on everything, man. I will tell you this, dude. A quick Ultimate Warrior story. Whenever he was here as the Dingo Warrior, one of the very first things that wrestling people that I ever got to meet, they had Meet the Wrestlers night at Will Rogers in I want to say December of '86, and he hadn't been there too long, but I had read about him. I knew that he was with the Blade Runners. I knew about him, and I knew that he was a bodybuilder before he was a wrestler. So, we're standing in line, and I already know what I'm going to ask him. I'm going to ask him, what it was like back in the day, bodybuilding and what it took to be a tag team champion with. I don't even know if it was Sting back in the day. It might have been. I'm pretty sure it was, but
I think
part
it was.
of
I think they came together from California.
Exactly. But this is going to sound crazy, so I'll finally get a chance to go up there.
Too late.
That's my bud. That's my bud. Say hi, Charlie.
Hi.
All right.
Hey, buddy, what's up?
Go get your mom. He's going to be the next champion. He's already got the belt. I don't know if you know that or not. He took on Chris Jericho and won, so we're very happy about that. We got a winner here. But back to the Dingo Warrior, man. So finally my chance comes up, and I'm 8 years old, and I get up there, and he's signing my notepad or whatever I had, and I just said, Mr. Warrior, can I feel your muscle? And he goes, yeah. And my mom was just like, Gary, and I was just like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, man, come on. So he let me go back there. I know people talk a lot of smack about him. They were like, he was a jerk and this and that. But to me, man, as a kid, he was cool to me. So he's flexing his muscle, and I'm just like, and he stands up and kind of swings me around. And dude, I will never forget that, man. Just a great moment. I thought,
of course.
And of course, to see him go on and have the success that he did, I was rooting for him quite a bit, man. He was something special, and I was very happy that I got to see him wrestle. And a lot of the matches that he had here was with Rick Rude. So, before WWE got him. So,
the ravishing one.
Too. Rick Rude's manager was also Percy Pringle. So,
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely, man. It was so cool, man.
That is so awesome, cool. Dude.
Wrestling was it was a blast, man. Like I said, sometimes, on those ride homes from Will Rogers Coliseum, and, we get into a house and half dazed anyways, and then waking up, going to school all tired. And it was like, I just went to wrestling last night. It was so surreal. It was a lot of fun. I got to see a lot of things that a lot of people wish they could have. I'm thankful, man, because a lot of these guys are not around today, and all you hear is the stories. All you hear about is the legends and stuff. And it was a great thing, man. It helped me. Get through some tough times in a lot of weird ways, and I'm just so grateful that I got that chance to see some of these guys that aren't here, and I got to experience what I did as a wrestling fan. And for that, man, I will always be a wrestling fan.
I mean, and like we talked about before, I mean, wrestling is so interactive. I mean, there's so many ways to connect with wrestling as a kid or even as an adult. Right, and it's one of the few forms of entertainment where you can rub elbows on a quasi-regular basis with the people you see on the TV. And if they are good people, which I would like to say more times than not, they're going to be good, genuine people.
Yeah, I agree.
That you're going to have those moments, and like you said, when you're going through hard times, you're going through tough times, you have these experiences that help you get through it. A lot of people, I think a lot of people forget. Like a lot of times, people like watch this sports in general to forget about tough times, or to try to just have moments where they can get away from the real world, or they listen to music, or they watch movies, and all those things are great. But with wrestling, you can do that too from a completely just like superficial version of it. But with wrestling, you can actually intermingle a lot of times with the people you watch, which in most other scenarios, you don't get to do that too often. Like, you're not going to get to go hang out with the Dallas Cowboys. It ain't going to happen. You're not going to go hang out with the Cincinnati Reds. It's just not going to happen, But a lot of these guys that are wrestlers, either coming up, going down, or just in the, make themselves available to their fans, you can do that with,
Absolutely.
And they know where their bread and butter is. They know that the happy fan makes their pockets fatter, know? And so I think that a lot of it's good for us. And I think sometimes, it's the thing that's lost nowadays, that connection with the wrestling world, because people want to get so like, everybody wants to be an expert. Everybody wants to like get into real heat with a wrestler, like on Twitter or Instagram and all this stuff. And I'm like,
they're overthinking
it. Right. These people are humans. They're there to entertain us.
Right.
And I, like you said, I just like when you were talking about, I like what you said about Ultimate Warrior. Ultimate Warrior might have been the biggest prick in the world to everybody else, but to 8-year-old Gary, he was like the world at that moment. And I stayed with you, And, I met Chris Jericho years ago at a horror convention. He was like in a lull in his career. Like, I think he was released from WWE or he stepped away or whatever.
Right.
I'm not for sure, but it was about like 7 years ago.
Okay.
And he came, and you could tell he was super bitter. He didn't want to be there. Like, he was on his cell phone, ignoring the fans.
Right.
And that was like left such a bad taste in my mouth. Now, I see him, and he's like, he's Mr. Personable on TV, and he's all Mr. like, trying to be funny, and I know he plays a heel and all that. Yeah. But I had a real interaction with him, and I didn't get his autograph. I didn't want to pay him $30 whatever. So I'm like, this guy's a dick. I'm saying, I didn't want to do that, and maybe he really isn't. But like you said, that was the experience I had. But at the end of the day, that doesn't sour me on the whole wrestling world, because there's so many different people who make it great.
Yeah. I got a chance to meet him last December. He did a little toy drive, I guess, when AEW was still kind of getting built up and everything. And they were doing a show here in North Texas. And the thing was, you had to bring a toy, and you got one autograph. And I remember my wife let me leave work, go straight there. And I waited a while. He was like an hour late to the signing. And I was like, man, this is crazy. The owner of the shop was coming through, was, looking at the line. They were filming the line and stuff like that. And then he had some people like do almost like a promo type video for him. And dude, it was so funny because I had my buddy that wrestled with me. He wanted to meet Jericho too. And, he was like, anybody want to do it? Nobody wanted to do it. And I was like, I'll do it. I'll do it right here. Put the camera on me. And, I started just making jokes, and I was like, Jericho, you want the next Ralphus? I'm your man. You better let me know. I'm ready to go. And apparently he showed it to him, and Jericho was actually really, really nice to me whenever it came my turn. And the owner of the store came over. He's like, "This is the guy that did that promo out there, or whatever." He's like, "All right, man, right on." And I was like, "Dude,
That's
thanks for this
awesome.
moment. Thanks for that. Thanks for giving me my moment." And
Sure.
he was cool, man. But I get it. I've heard that he's that way too. That
Right.
some days he's just not that cool guy or whatever. From what I understand, whenever he was kind of going through that break, I think he was doing his Fozzy stuff at the time,
Yeah.
or whatever. And so, yeah, I've heard both sides of the coin. Luckily, man, I've heard that about Ric Flair too. We had a
Yeah.
wonderful interaction with Ric Flair. He wooed at my son, man. It was so hilarious. And but I've heard the other side of the coin on that too. Like, oh, he's a jerk, man. He's not personable, and
Right.
I get it. It's a
But
business.
at the end of the day, we're all humans. We have good days
Yeah.
and bad days.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, people like wrestlers have a microscope on them all the time, and sometimes you can't tell if it's a work. You can't tell if that's really who they are.
Right.
You can't tell if they're just having a bad day or whatever. So sometimes you got to give them the benefit of the doubt. But I think at the end of the day, I want to show, I think we all want to. I want to be the kind of person that can be like, you know what, it's okay. I want to have another interaction with them, and maybe the second time will be better. If it happens again, then I'll know. I'm like this guy. No more chances. But I mean, I think it is that way. But with that being said, I wanted to go ahead and just kind of wrap it up because we got the hour in. I don't want to take too much of your time, but maybe we can do this. Again, if you would like, Gary.
Man, I would love it, man. And if anybody's out there that wants to see it too, leave a comment, give a thumbs up. Make sure you sub to Mr. Zombie Collector here and let him know what you thought of this, this little interaction, because I love to geek out on wrestling. I love talking about some of the old memories and stuff and, what I've gotten from it. And I want to be able to give some people some advice too. And, if you want to reach out and write to somebody or, build any kind of connection of what maybe you have with wrestling. Because the biggest thing that I've gotten from, especially going to a lot of these independent shows, is that you see a lot of the same people as you're going, and you wind up becoming friends with some of these people. And it's just a great outlet, man. It's just so cool because there's that weird unity, and I've made a lot of great friends just going to these matches and just, yelling and screaming and getting into it or whatever. But, just really getting into it. And it's so much fun to just kind of lose yourself in the moment and just, not take it too serious, but, just it's good versus evil. Like you said, it's the great American white trash soap opera. That's what it is. And that's why we love it and why we will always love it. It's just so much fun to watch and see these stories unfold and see how they're told. And yeah, dude, I've enjoyed it, man. This has been so much fun, man. And Jason, I can't thank you enough too for having me. I've always wanted to do something like this and just talk with people and tell some stories. And I've got a ton more, man. So
yeah,
anytime you want to do it, I'm here, man.
All right, dude. Well, we'll leave it there. I think that's a good way to end this one. And then we'll talk off camera. There's a couple other guys that's in our community that you may be aware of that maybe we can do another person in there with us who can also talk and just kind of have you have a big geek out session, and who watches it can enjoy it and who doesn't, they can skip through it. But I really appreciate it, guys. And again, this is Gary. If y'all don't know, it's Elbosausage. He does have a channel here on YouTube.
Yeah.
Check it out. It's a lot of TTMs, a lot of wrestling. So if you like those two things, you're probably going to like his channel pretty well there. And like I said, I think we're going to probably try to do this on, a semi-regular basis because, just like Gary said, I don't need much of a reason to geek out about wrestling. If I got a person who wants to talk wrestling, I'm like, where to win? Where do I sign up?
Absolutely, man. I'm telling you, man, I was so pumped for this week. I was like, man, I can't wait till Friday. Man. I just could not wait, dude. So thanks again, man, for having me and geeking out with me. I can't wait to hear some more stories from you and anybody else out there, whatever territories that you were in. And if you got some memories, share them, dude. I love it.
All right, dude. Well, hey, we'll stop right there. And until next time, guys, thanks for watching. Peace.
Too sweet.
Oh, nice. All right, man.
Yeah.
All right, so I went ahead